Hello again, Francoise. Good to be back with you in these little dialogues that we're having about our Thinking with the Heart in Mind program, which we're bringing back this year in the fourth quarter of 2025. And I know we're going to be posting about dates or have already posted dates for people to see when it's available. And we've been exploring various themes so far, and they're all themes that are connected to the things that we explore in the program. And today we're going to think together about self-compassion. And I guess a good way to get us started on that, and that I'd love to get your thinking on, is what matters about self-compassion, what matters about being self-compassionate. What do you think?
Well, I think it matters that it matters, actually, because I think so much of the narrative or the perception or the idea around self-compassion or compassion in general is that it's weakness, or it's it also gets conflated. Self-compassion gets conflated with self-pity or self-indulgence, or um, yeah, um, really it gets a bad rap, I think. Um, and and so I think it matters that actually it really does matter. Self-compassion really does matter, because self-compassion isn't self-pity and it's not self-indulgence. It's actually a capacity to be tremendously friendly and encouraging towards ourselves in our weakest moments, so that from that place of perceived failure as a human being, or from even the place of having made a mistake, of potentially a very real consequential mistake, we can learn and grow, because instead of shutting down, um, you know, diminishing or indulging ourselves, or undermining the even the extent of the mistake we may have made, by belittling it, because we're just indulging ourselves, and oh well, so what. um we can instead be self-compassionate. And
Mm.
so from that place of self-compassion, I think real learning and human growth happens. um and that's why it matters. What do you think?
Mm. I'm so glad you've said what you've said, because I think one of the things that matters about it is how hard it is, you know. Um, it's and why is it so hard for us to be friendly towards ourselves? I mean, I remember um I've had several in my lifetime beautiful journeys with therapists. And I remember actually the last therapist, it's some time ago now, but the last therapist that I worked with, there was this, and I think at the time that I was in therapy with him, I was going through a very tough patch in my life, and and it seemed to have been going on for a long time as well. Although, I mean, I don't know how real that actually was, because, it can always feel like it's a long time if you're in a tough patch, even for a moment or two. Um, and I remember he used to have this phrase that he used to use, and it was, you know, can you sit down next to yourself and put your arm around yourself like you would a friend? And and even as I say that now, I can feel myself getting emotional, because I can remember when he used to say that, I used to think, I have not got a cooking clue what this person's talking about. I was like, it was the furthest thing that I could imagine doing for myself at that time, because I was in a place of feeling so self-rejecting, because of what I was struggling with, and because I was in an experience of failing, to be who I wanted to be, or, to live in the way that I wanted to live. and so much seemed wrong, you know, in my life at that time. And so this invitation that he kept offering me, which I now see was an invitation for self-compassion, you know, treat yourself as you would a dear friend, which I, by the way, very, very good at. I'm very good at sitting down next to my friends and putting my arms around them and being incredibly compassionate towards them. So yeah, I think there's something about the, as you said, the incredible growth journey that we go on as human beings when we learn to be self-compassionate is the thing that makes it so important, as well, of course, as the outcome of it then in your life, because an enormous amount of unnecessary suffering and angst and energy and, you know, traumatizing consequences for both you and the people around you that love you happens when you fail to be able to be self-compassionate. You know, so yeah, I think it really, really matters. What more do you think?
I think the moments, well, I love that you've surfaced how hard it is to be self-compassionate in a way. Or I think I love that you've really surfaced how hard it is to fail, to have the feeling or the experience, the perception that I have failed. And I don't know whether it's the same for all people, but for me, often that experience is a very shut down experience. It's tight, it's limited, it's constricted. It doesn't have potential imbued in it. It has flatness, a dullness to it. And the moment where we bring some friendliness to ourselves in those moments of failure, it has this this quality of soothing to it. And in that space of feeling soothed, the tightness or the constriction or the limitedness softens. And from that place, the actual experience of failure, like, oh, I may have failed. I may have failed to get into a university, or I may have failed to, you know, make the grade that I wanted, or I may have failed to live up to a particular value that I really hold dear. But the experience of grappling with that, it becomes less self-centered, and it becomes much more, from this place of soothing, it becomes much more an invitation to learn and to look at where I can do things differently. And that we know this of our friends, you know, if someone's struggling, we'd put it, as you are very good at it, Trisha. You're definitely someone I come to say, wow, you know, I can feel tremendously safe with you to say, to explore the aspects of myself that are being overly harsh, overly critical, and shine some light on them, because I can draw on your soothing, your encouragement, your presence, and all you're imbuing it with. And imagine, I mean, that's what we do with Thinking with the Heart in Mind. Imagine when we're both doing that, when you offering me that compassion, I have a self-compassion skill set, and we working this together, you know. You're offering me compassion, I'm offering myself self-compassion. So yeah, I'm wondering what changes for you personally when you access your capacity for self-compassion, or if you have any more to think on what I've just shared.
Well, I think one of the things that changes for me, and it's something I'm enormously grateful for, is that I become uh, it's funny, it's almost like a paradox, because self-compassion puts self center, and I think that's one of the things you started off with, how it gets a bad rap, because there's this whole sort of thing about being self-centered is it's wrong to be self-centered, and there are aspects of self-centeredness that I can understand why people have that sort of assessment about it. But the interesting thing about self-compassion is that the minute I'm able to be self-compassionate, it actually joins me up to the rest of the human race. And it also creates an experience of humility for me, that, because I think when we're being hard and harsh and punitive towards ourselves, there's, in a funny kind of a way, there's a weird sort of arrogance there, that we should never be less than perfect, and that there's such a thing as being perfect, and that we failed to be perfect, and now we're being horribly cruel towards ourselves in a narrative. And actually, if you really confront that and look at it head on, what I can see there is the nonsense that is, for a start, and the untruthfulness of it, because, as you said, we're fallible, we're human, we all are, we're all part of it, we're all in this boat together, this boat of being human. And when I can have compassion towards myself, it sort of puts me in the boat with everyone else, and I'm part of it too, and I can they're there, as I would do with a friend, and it makes me more real. I think that's what changes for me. What do you think? What changes for you when you can be self-compassionate?
I think certainly what you're referencing about landing in the human story, it's so the sense of belonging, it's like, I'm not alone. I'm just like everyone else out there who has a life that has some success and some failure in it. That's how life is. And that sense of not being alone, it is expansive. It has a generosity to it. It's kind of like, it's certainly heart opening, but it's encompassing. I'm in the human story, and humans are like me, and I'm like humans. And so it's, for me, what changes is that the sense of welcoming, and with it often comes a lightness and some sense of humor. I mean, it's like, oh well, that wasn't my finest moment, or I do have this memory of actually one of our thinking sessions where I'd parked really badly you were staying at someone's house, and I'd parked really badly, and someone at the end of when I walked out, someone had been walking through the neighborhood, and my parking had impacted someone. They didn't get a parking because I parked really badly. But obviously this person, well, I'm assuming, must have lived in the neighborhood, and this kind of people who park badly were constantly impacting this person. And this person had made these little cards that said, I can't remember exactly what they said, but something like, you parked like a poo, or something like that. Oh, you parked like a turd, So there's like, and there's this picture of a turd. You're a turd. You park like a turd. And I read this, and I mean, in this very human moment, I was like, yes, I parked like a turd, but you made this card, like, and put the turd card on my car, And then, but then it was like, yeah, I did park like a turd. And it's actually, I mean, I inconvenienced someone, and I don't want to inconvenience someone. It's not like how I choose to live my life, but I did in that moment, and I don't want to do it again. And thank you for bringing that to my attention. but also just, I mean, this awareness for this other person, the suffering that they may have experienced just through their judgment and their irritation and their anger and their frustration, to be so driven by that, to go and laminate cards and walk around a neighborhood and post them. I mean, I don't know, but for me, it feels like quite a hard way to live. And so in every way, that moment was imbued with so much softness and possibility and understanding and compassion, just through this tiny, small moment of self-compassion where I was able to interrupt this harsh self-narrative that was popping up in my head and then, causing all this othering to happen. Chris Germer has this wonderful quote. Chris Germer and Kristen Neff done a lot of work around self-compassion. He says, like, a moment of self-compassion can change a day, but a string of self-compassion can change a life. And I think in that, like, really prosaic example, when you look at, this, the different potential that compassion offers us in any given moment, it's kind of like a bit of a no-brainer for me. Why wouldn't you want that? What do you think? And
I
do you
love that
have any more to add?
I love that you told that story. You never told me that story before. The funny thing is, I'm actually thinking of going and getting some of those cards laminated because there's people that park outside my front gate in a way that means I can't get into my house sometimes. But anyway, I'm only joking. But yeah, I think to end off this dialogue today, I think given everything that we've said about how life altering it is, for not just ourselves but for people around us as well, and the difference that it makes, and the fact that it's so hard. And I think that's something that we do really navigate well in thinking with the heart in mind, and again, as I said in one of our previous dialogues, make practices available that are really doable, and yes, you do have to practice them, but they are doable and they are practicable, in order to cultivate self-compassion. It's a huge act of kindness, not just for yourself, but for the world. And we need all of that we can get. So, yeah, thank you for our time together today and for making me giggle.
Thanks, Trisha.
Bye.
Bye.